times there.
Yeah, it looks like we went live. Are we? All right. All rise, please. It's the time, building inspector.
Let us pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, Lord God, we come to you tonight in prayer. Father, we ask that you be with the proceedings of this meeting tonight. Lord, I pray for guidance for all the council members and the city administrator. Thank you for the city staff, everybody that's come together to help support this community. And just bless us as we move forward and continue through some of these tough times. And we ask that you be with us tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I will call us to order, and we've already had our roll call, and we have a quorum. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Have a motion?
So move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All righty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item is recognition of guests. We have Andy Marmaget with KPM CPAs, and he will be introduced by City Finance Director Erlene Rich.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I just wanted to take a couple of seconds here at the very beginning just to publicly, officially thank the staff of the Finance Department. They did a phenomenal job this year with their audit, getting the request to the auditors, getting things done, and you have an audit completed on time in the absence of a finance director, because I did not come in really till the tail end. So I just wanted to publicly thank them for all of their hard work, as well as the HR director, Sherry, who stepped in and did a lot of running errands and getting things to the auditors beforehand. So with that, I'd like to introduce Andy Marmaget from KPM, and he'll give you all of the fun stuff that happened during this year's audit.
Thanks, Erlene. Again, my name is Andy Marmaget with KPM CPAs, and we have completed our audits of the city for the year ended March 31st, 2020. There's two different audits we did for the city this year. We audited the city's financial statements, and we also audited compliance with the city's major federal grant programs. And what I'd like to do this evening is go over the results of those two audits, as well as talk a little bit about the financial highlights for this past year. The first page of the report I'd like for you to take a look at is page 4. The report here on page 4 is called the Independent Auditor's Report, and this is the report where we state our opinion on the city's financial statements. And we're stating an opinion on whether or not the city has fairly presented its financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. The type of opinion that we've given the city is what we call an unmodified or clean opinion, and that's the best opinion that you can receive on your financial statements. Next, I'd like for you to turn over to page 15. This first financial statement I wanted to go over is called the Statement of Net Position. It shows the assets, liabilities, and net position of the city as of March 31st, 2021. And it's broken out between governmental activities. They're in column 1. And governmental activities are all the activities that are generally financed through tax revenues. And business type activities, which is presented in column 2, and your business type activities is the city's utilities. Then the third column is the total of the two. And then the last 4 columns on this page are the city's component units. If you look on the left-hand side of the page and go down to the 4th line from the bottom where it says total assets, and look across to that first column, which represents governmental activities, you'll see the total assets of governmental activities at the end of the year was $53.5 million, and that's down $828,000 from a year ago. Of that total, the unrestricted cash, which is the very first line in this top section, for the city totaled $3,990,000 at the end of the year, and that was up $282,000 from a year ago. Total assets of the business type activities there in the second column was just under 67.7 million. And that's down 458,000 from a year ago. The unrestricted cash balance, again, the first line for the utilities at the end of the year was 16.5 million. And that's down 1.3 million from a year ago. Next, I'd like for you to turn over to page 16. This is also part of the statement of net position, and this page shows the total liabilities and net position. If you look over on the left-hand side of the page and go down to that first subtotal where it says total liabilities and look across that first column, you'll see the total liabilities of the governmental activities was 6.7 million at the end of the year. And that's up 323,000 from the prior year. And that's due mainly to additional accounts payable that were on hand at the end of this past year. Total liabilities for utilities there in the next column was 6.2 million, and that remained unchanged from the prior year. So the total liabilities for the city there in that third column was just over 13 million at the end of the year. The total net position, the very last line there on the page, and net position is simply the assets minus the liabilities of the city. The net position for governmental activities at the end of the year was 47.7 million. And that was up 234,000 from a year ago. And total net position of the utilities was 62.1 million, and that was up 29,000. Next, I'd like for you to turn over to page 22. This next financial statement I wanted to take a look at is called the Statement of Revenues, Expenditures, and Changes in Fund Balances for the city's governmental funds. And what I wanted to look at this evening is column 1, the city's general fund. If you look on the left-hand side of the page towards the top, that first subtotal where it says total revenues, and look across to the column, that first column there, you'll see the total revenues of the general fund this past year was 14.2 million. And that was up 724,000 from a year ago. The tax revenues make up the majority of the revenues, the first line in that top section. Tax revenues for the general fund this past year was 11.5 million, and that was up 826,000 from a year ago. So that represents about a 6% increase, which is a good, healthy increase in your tax revenues. Next, I'd like you to turn over to page 23. Total expenditures for the general fund. If you look on the left-hand side of the page, go down to that first subtotal there, total expenditures, and look across to the right. Total expenditures were just over 13 million for the general fund this past year. That was up 207,000 from a year ago. So overall, revenues exceeded expenditures, next line down, by 1.1 million. And after including some lease proceeds, the overall increase in the general fund, third line from the bottom, was 1.2 million. Bringing the fund balance up in the general fund from 10.4 million to start the year to 11.6 million at the end of the year. Next, I'd like for you to turn over to page 26. This next statement shows the revenues and expenses for the city's utilities. Column 1 represents the year ended March 31st, 2021, and the second column represents the year ended March 31st, 2020. If you look on the left-hand side of the page and go down to that first subtotal, total operating revenues, and look across to that first column, you'll see that the operating revenues for this past year was just over 23 million, and that's up from 22.3 million in the prior year. And most of that increase came with additional electricity charges this past year. Next, if you turn over to page 27. And go down to that first subtotal there on the page on the left-hand side, total operating expenses, and look across to that first column. You'll see the total operating expenses for utilities this past year was 22.9 million. And that's up from 20.8 million a year ago. And that represents just about a $2 million increase. Most of that increase occurred in wages and additional power purchases. So overall, there was an operating income, next line down, of $132,000. And that's down from the operating income received in the prior year. In that second column, the operating income last year was $1.4 million. And after we include some non-operating revenues and expenses, the net income, third line from the bottom, was $29,000, which brought the net position of utilities up to $62,167,000 at the end of the year. Next, I'd like you to turn all the way back to page 73. The report here on page 73 has a very long title, but what it is a report that's required to be issued by us to the city council anytime we conduct an audit in accordance with government auditing standards as set by the federal government. And what government auditing standards require is that if during our audit of the financial statements, anything came to our attention that indicated immaterial weaknesses in the internal controls of the city, or any non-compliance with any laws, regulations, contracts, or grants, this is where we would report it to council. And I'm pleased to report this evening that we did not note any material weaknesses, nor did we note any non-compliance. Important to note, though, that we did not audit your internal controls, nor do we do not audit compliance with all laws, regulations, contracts, or grants. Just simply means that nothing came to our attention that indicated that.
Question,
Yes, sir.
should those grants and other activities be audited? Once you don't, should it be audited by somebody else?
We do an audit of compliance with the major federal, your federal grant programs, but no, we do not audit every grant program. And it's not required for every grant program to be audited.
Give me an example, which one wouldn't be required?
The city receives a lot of small federal grants, such as your transit grant and bulletproof vest grants and things like that. And the federal government, if a government spends less than $750,000 in federal funds, it's not required to have an audit at all.
Right.
If you spend over $750,000, then the major federal grants have to be programmed, which I'm just getting ready to go over. Those do have to be audited,
Right.
and that's all set by the federal government.
So the single audit act.
The single audit act, correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe that the reason for that is because if the federal government required all grants to be audited, it would really increase the burden on the government.
Sure.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to note about this report is that most of our audits have findings in this report, so not to have any is very good. So I congratulate the city on that. Next, if you turn over to page 75. And there is one compliance audit we did do, which is talking about the grants, and that's what this report here on 75 is for. Anytime a government spends over $750,000 in federal funds, it's required to have this audit. And the two grant programs that were audited this year was the Burns Law Enforcement Grant and the coronavirus monies that the city received from the county. And I'm pleased to report to City Council that the city has received an unmodified or clean opinion on its compliance. Again, that's the best opinion that you can receive. And finally, I'd like to take a look at our recommendations. It's in the separate letter that I gave you. It's not part of the bound report. Everyone have a copy of that second letter? Okay. The first one is on cybersecurity. And this really isn't a recommendation, but rather just a reminder to continue to do what you're doing. Governments are heavily targeted by cyber criminals these days, and you probably heard about some instances in the news holding governments, the records hostage for ransom. And so what we're recommending here is that the city continue to do risk assessment processes over its cybersecurity. Do things like educating employees on how to recognize fraudulent emails, reviewing your insurance coverage every year to make sure you feel like you have adequate insurance coverage in case you are breached, and having a recovery plan on what to do in case you're breached. Next, on page number 2 on the next page, this is in regards to a new accounting standard that's coming out. It's in regards to operating leases. In the past, operating leases, which oftentimes rental agreements, were not required to be on the balance sheet as assets or liabilities. Once the standard goes into effect, those operating leases will go on the balance sheet as assets and liabilities. And one example of that is your hangar rental agreements that you have out at the airport. That's just one example of many I'm sure that the city has. So what we're recommending here is the city become familiar with the new standard and begin the process of accumulating that information so that it can be put into the balance sheet on the effective date. Number 3, collateralization of deposits. Governments in the state are required to have their deposits collateralized, and one of the community improvement districts did not have adequate collateral. And so we just recommend the city remind the community improvement district that they do need to make sure their deposits are collateralized. Then the last recommendation, number 4, is on budgetary compliance. The city was not compliant with the budgetary statute as budgets weren't prepared for the TIF funds. However, I do know that they were budgeted in this upcoming year and that you're in. And so I think that's probably already taken care of. So, and that's all I had to go over this evening. As you can see, the city has received a very good audit report, and financially the city is doing well. Is there any additional questions on anything that I've covered this evening?
I've got a question on page 27. Other revenue, it showed last year we had a negative 38,478. I mean, under other expenditures, and this year we don't have, not showing any. Is that because we're not done with the year?
No, I'm not quite sure what those expenses are for last year off the top of my head. I'd have to go look and get back to you on that. It's down under non-operating revenue expense. It was probably some type of one-time expense that something that doesn't normally occur every year. So that's probably what that is, but exactly what it is, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. Probably something for Arlene to get back to us
Get a
on.
little shovel out. Thanks, Andy.
No problem. Any other questions? If not, I want to thank the council for having me here this evening, and I want to take a moment and thank all the city's personnel who helped us during our audit, especially Arlene and the entire finance department. Everyone here is always very professional and helpful to me and my staff, and that doesn't happen everywhere we go. So when it does, I always want to mention it. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy.
Now we'll move on to the reading of the bills. Bill 4691 to become ordinance 4691, second reading, an ordinance prohibiting the parking of motor vehicles on Allen Street from East Olden to the north 450 feet.
Make a motion to approve Bill 4691 to become ordinance 4691, second reading.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Assuming we didn't get any public comment on that.
Yeah. Tanya?
Bill 4691 to become ordinance 4691, second reading. Nice,
Yes.
Cotter,
Yes.
Merle,
Yes.
Neeson,
Yes.
Topliff.
Yes.
Bill 4692 to become ordinance 4692, second reading, an ordinance of the city of West Plains, Missouri to amend and replace the following 3 existing sections of the city code. Chapter 44, section 44-64, duty to maintain financial responsibility. Section 44-78, stop for school bus, and section 44-132, slow speed, impeding traffic.
Make a motion to approve Bill 4692 to become ordinance 4692, second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Again, no input again.
No, sir. Chief Monticelli is out this evening. Lieutenant Bunch is here to answer any questions, but if there are none, no, we did not receive any comment on this.
Tanya?
Bill 4692 to become ordinance 4692, second reading. Nice,
Yes.
Cotter,
Yes.
Merle,
Yes.
Neeson,
Yes.
Topliff.
Yes.
Bill 4693 to become ordinance 4693, second reading, an ordinance to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement between Show Me Power Electric Cooperative and the city of West Plains, Missouri.
Make a motion to approve Bill 4693 to become ordinance 4693, second reading.
Second.
Jeff, what do you got for us?
We did not receive any comment on this agreement that we would be entering into. So, okay. If there was no other question from council. So.
Tanya?
Bill 4693 to become ordinance 4693, second reading. Nice,
Yes.
Potter,
Yes.
Merle,
Yes.
Neeson,
Yes.
Topliff.
Yes.
Bill 4694 to become ordinance 4694, first reading, an ordinance to authorize the mayor to execute a generation interconnection and operation agreement, GIA, for the solar farm between the city of West Plains, Missouri and Evergy, Kansas Central Incorporated.
Make a motion to approve Bill 4694 to become ordinance 4694, first reading.
Second.
Okay, so what this is the interconnection agreement for the solar farm. And it also in this agreement, it clearly identifies who's responsible for what out at the solar farm as far as the interconnection and where we're going to have that connection point between City West Plains and the solar farm power that would be coming from Evergy. So.
This more or less lays that whole project out. You will do this and they will, and then, okay.
Yeah, it sure does. It makes everything very clear whenever it comes to maintenance on who's, while we're operating in this agreement, who's responsible for what, so. This is normal procedure for any generator that is connected to a system, so. We do this with SPP with our generators on top of the hill, so.
Any other questions?
I'd just say it appeared consistent with everything we've been told the last several years as far as how that would play out. So
Yeah.
no surprises for me.
Tanya?
Bill 4694 to become ordinance 4694, first reading. Nice,
Yes.
Cotter,
Yes.
Merle,
Yes.
Neeson,
Yes.
Topliff.
Yes.
Bill 1145 to become resolution 1145, a resolution supporting an application by HRM Services LLC to the Missouri Housing Development Commission, Thayer Avenue.
Make a motion to approve Bill 1145 to become resolution 1145.
Second.
Good evening.
Hi, sir.
My name is Pete Ramsell. I'm with HRM Services.
Yep. Tell me about it. Sitting there.
Thanks, sir.
I thought this was the best way to easily identify the property that we're talking about. The particular property is called Seminole Apartments currently. We want to change the name. It was actually an application that was submitted last year. We're resubmitting it this year. After we submit applications and they're not funded, we have a period where MHDC will call basically the developers and consultants into the office and tell us why it wasn't funded and give us suggestions on what we need to do to get it funded. I wanted to make sure that you knew the location of this property, if you don't mind thumbing through this with me. It's at 892 South Thayer Avenue. Don't know if that means a lot to everybody, but there's a site plan on the next page. Project information to the left. As you can see, we want to change the name to Thayer Heights. Nothing really special about that, other than we just want a new name and a new image. The next picture is basically a Google photo, aerial photo, showing the property. The next is, pardon me, upside down. It's an elevation of the buildings, the way they should appear when we complete them. I think the next picture and is more telling. That's the property as it is today. That was probably a picture taken in the last 6 months. Typical of these properties. This one's 25 years old. It's tired. And it just needs my theory. And let me tell you why I say it's my theory. I was the executive director of the Missouri Housing Development Commission for over 15 years. And one of the things that I really enjoyed and I really emphasized was the preservation of the older portfolio. when a property has gotten to the age of 25 years old, it's tired. And you just have to admit that. And so what we literally are going to do, and I use this term all the time, is we're going to make it like new. And I'll describe that briefly to you. It's going to have a new roof. It's going to have new siding, tuck pointing, new windows. There are some drainage issues that we're going to take care of and resolve. That's not unusual for, again, a property that's 25 years old. As you can imagine, it doesn't meet all the accessibilities. It certainly doesn't meet the handicap requirements. So we're going to do all those kind of things. I'm very unhappy with the existing stairs. We're going to replace those. We'll replace basically the HVAC system. High energy efficient system is going back. It's all about energy. It'll be energy all the way. Every bulb, everything every fixture that we replace will be energy related. So that's kind of what we're doing. And again, we proposed it last year. It didn't get funded. And we're going to go right back and try to do it again. I thought maybe you'd want to see, and I did this, and it's kind of small. But this is a preliminary budget to show you the kind of money that we're going to spend. There's only 20 units there. We're going to spend $1.3 million, close to $1.4 million just in rehab costs. And then you have all the other associated fees and no hiding anything. Here's the complete budget. We will finance that with tax credits if we're awarded tax credits. Tax credits are basically sold to banks, insurance companies, large corporations. It's a direct write-off of their taxes. So it's private equity that'll fund most of this. And then I even wanted you to see the operating budget and the extent of the operating budget. Why it's tired right now, besides the 25 years, it is just probably a lot of you know Terry Sanders with Ozark Action. Terry's a good friend. Obviously, with my being with the Missouri Housing Development Commission, we had a lot of interaction over the years. Terry would say to you, I just didn't have the operating budget I need. I didn't have the reserves that I could replenish. And it was just time for me to basically let the property go and let somebody else do it again, so to speak. And this is very common. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to make it like new. You'll be proud of it. We'll stay proud of it. We report to MHDC. We're responsible to them. They do an annual audit. They do an annual inspection. More importantly, and this is really significant, most people don't realize this, but the investors that are coming into this proposal are putting approximately $5 million of cash into this deal to make it work. And they expect us not only to sign guarantees that it's going to work, but they do an annual audit, an annual inspection. And at the end of 15 years, when they get out of the partnership, they want it to look as good as the day that we did it. So that's the kind of people that we have watching us, everything that we do. I was happy to come down tonight and give you that brief explanation and let you know the extent of the rehab and why we're proposing it. We'll give it another 25 years and then do it again at that end of that. Well, maybe I won't. So that's my story. Any questions?
I've got a couple.
Sure.
What's the purchase price that you're purchasing the property for?
Typically, they appraise at 30,000 a unit. So that's a ballpark figure. And so knowing that they're going to appraise at 30,000, basically we proposed in an option contract 30,000.
You got 20 units?
20 units, 600.
The ADA has been around a long time. What does the current facility not comply with regarding ADA?
ADA is so sophisticated these days that we're only allowed a 1% slope, if you can believe that, from the building out to the street. And then every accessible route, in other words, the far building over there in that corner has to have an accessible route to that office. And so it's really extensive.
Okay.
So there will be a lot of grading issues and repaving and all of that to make it truly accessible. If HUD came in and did an audit right now, which they can do of any property, it would fail. And there would be fines assessed to the property. But that's typical of any property that honestly is 15 years old or older. So that's a big part of what we do.
Are we going to have opportunity for local tradesmen to bid on some of the work?
Yes, absolutely. We have a general contractor that does a lot of work for us across the state. The general contractor is important to us because they understand HUD's and MHDC's rules and regulations, the dispersing, the bonding requirements and all of that. But we will hire as many local subs as we can. And that's always been our commitment to every community that we work in.
And what was lacking in your application last year that MHDC didn't award your?
Honestly, they said we couldn't get to it, resubmit it, and we'll try to get to it next year.
Really?
Yes. This happens, the preservation happens to be very, very important. Somebody 30 years ago put that into what's called the qualified allocation plan. Because this old guy thought a lot of preservation and he wanted to preserve the affordable product all over the state. That old guy's me. So
Good job.
it's important to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't take care of it and you don't make these repairs, eventually it's just going to fall apart, and you don't want that, and I don't want that. We have to preserve the affordable housing. And so that's kind of been my mission since I left the agency.
How are these units currently occupied?
Yes, they are.
Is there?
We
with the
pay for all the relocation.
Sorry,
We pay for all the relocation.
that was my.
Sorry, I'm not used to speaking. But yes, we'll pack them, we move them, we bring them back. And that's part of using the general contractor. The general contractor that we use is used to this. They're involved. We'll use a moving company that we've used over and over again. They're tried, they're proven, they do a good job.
You say move, where will that temporary housing?
We
Hopefully
actually
here?
find apartments for them. We pay their rent, we pay their utility
Will they
bills,
here
and we
in
bring them
town?
back in West Plains.
Good.
Yes.
Very good. No other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bill 1146 to become Resolution 1146, a resolution of the city of West Plains, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with construction engineering contract with CMT for the governor's cost share section 1.
Make a motion to approve Bill 1145 to become Resolution 1145. Oh, 1146.
Second.
All right, Emily.
All right, good evening. This is going to be the construction engineering contract with CMT. Currently, we have a design contract with them for this project. But to move into the construction phase, we need to have a separate contract with them, and their current agreement does not cover construction. This is in agreement with MoDOT because it's the governor's cost share project. Throughout the state with these projects, they're allowing us to just utilize our design engineers to continue into the construction phase and also to expedite this project. We want to keep it moving forward. This would be contingent on MoDOT's concurrence. So similar to what you're going to hear with the break and access bid, we're still waiting on MoDOT to concur after the commission meeting, hopefully on October 6th. But we wanted to go ahead and bring this to you all tonight, so we didn't have to come back together immediately after that to try to keep the project moving forward as quickly as we can.
Any other questions? Good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
All right.
Next, we have council action. Jeff Shipley.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Hey, I've got a few items to bring before you tonight. Okay, the first item is break and access phase of governor's cost share grant. And as you know, this is for a new signal on US Highway 63 between CC and Broadway intersections, plus a roundabout at 5th Street and Kentucky Avenue. And as Emily just mentioned, we are asking for approval, but this is also contingent on MoDOT giving concurrence at their October 6th commission meeting. So as you can see, I have two bidders, HR Quadri and RL Persons. HR Quadri is the apparent low on their construction cost at $1,793,028.10. And the total proposal cost, which consists of electric work, is $59,510 for a total bid of $1,852,538.10. Questions?
Jeff, is that, since I know that there's not a budget amount for this, but was that in line with what we were expecting it to cost?
It was a little higher than what we were expecting it to cost. The concrete came in higher than what we anticipated, the concrete work. And a lot of it is handwork. They're not going to put machines in there and pour the concrete for us. There's going to be a lot of handwork done there. So
Make a motion that we approve the bid of HR Quadri of Van Buren, Missouri for $1,852,538.10 for the break-in access phase of the governor's cost share grant, contingent upon MoDOT's approval.
Second.
Any other discussion? Get her done. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next item I have is a bulk water fill station for City Hall. Currently out here north of City Hall on Holiday Lane, we have a small fenced in area. We have a 2-inch flush hydrant there with a meter on it. Currently, if a customer wants to come in, they come in during business hours. They get the key, open the gate, they get their water, they take the reading, the ending reading, bring it into City Hall here, and then we charge them for the amount of water that they took. If approved, this bulk water fill station will allow them to get water 24 hours a day, whenever they want. Staff does not have to be here. They simply get charged before they get their water via credit card or via debit card. This does give the customer more flexibility to get their water. It also allows for better accountability and accuracy of the water usage, which helps us. We're trying to cut down on our water loss. So just little steps like this, we're hoping that will help us do that. We have 3 bidders, MEC, Flowpoint, and Elamec. Elamec is the low bid, and their bid includes the cabinet, the panel mounted card reader, a cold climate package, startup and training, and shipping. One thing I would like to mention is the city will be responsible for a concrete pad and a pipe stubbed up through the concrete pad, and we will have to set the cabinet on the pad and hook it up. And then once that's done, then they come and they start up and train. So, but their cost, including shipping, is $33,895.
Who you recommending?
That's who I would recommend, yes. We did make a phone call. We talked to them a couple of times, and we feel that their product would work for our application.
How long have we had the bulk water service?
We've had that hydrant out there for many, many years, many years. We've had to replace the meter a time or two just because it wears out and it fails, but had to replace the hose a few times, but we've had that for a long time out there.
How many people actually utilize that?
That is something that I cannot answer.
Probably about a dozen on a regular basis. Give them a mess, maybe 24, and maybe a couple of dozen more that would be it. Part of it is your contractors that are doing directional board. They'll come out here and do that. Or anybody that would be taking water at a bulk service like Pace doing asphalt, they'll come out. They would have the ability to come out and fill up there instead of taking off of a hydrant, which is what we're trying to prevent. So by doing this, there's more accountability with this station being in place. The other thing is Johnny, for how many years we've had this one out here since City Hall's been out here, and we prior to this addition. But we had one probably about 35, 40 years ago that was down by Covey's. I don't know if you remember that one or
Sure
not.
do, yeah.
So there we had one at that location at one point in time. So we relocated everything out here whenever city moved out here. So.
Any other questions?
I move we accept the recommendations.
Oh, did we ever get a, no, okay. Let's get a motion.
You want a real motion?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sorry I didn't do it right.
I'm sorry, Johnny. Then I make a motion that we approve the bid of Elamec of Aurora, Illinois for $33,895 for a bulk water fill station for City Hall.
What he said, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, got that one. A third item I have is this is fire hydrants for inventory. This is for 12 hydrants. This is just to replace what we've used, replenish our inventory. I have two bidders in the area that can quote the Mueller hydrant. Harry Cooper is the low bid from Springfield, Missouri, for a total of 12 hydrants of $25,591.20.
Make a motion, we approve the bid of Harry Cooper of Springfield, Missouri for $25,591.20 for fire hydrants for inventory.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay, I have a new refuse truck for the refuse department. Normally, Brent would have 6 refuse trucks that runs the routes around town. Currently, I think he has 3 that are functioning. One was involved in a wreck here a few weeks ago. 2 others are down for mechanical issues. Peterbilt is having trouble at this point getting parts to repair them with. So we think this is going to be going on for a while. The truck that was damaged in the wreck, they were having difficulties processing the claim for reasons unknown. That is the reason why I'm bringing this before you tonight. This is kind of an emergency type situation. Jeff was going to try to budget for this trash truck next fiscal year, but with the situation, he is asking for it a little bit earlier. The expense for this would be added to the budget during amendment time. So that is what he's looking at as far as funding this. If this is approved, once the truck that is wrecked, once it is repaired or replaced, they have a truck that they will get rid of, a 2013 International rear load. So this new truck is part of a Sourcewell contract through TLG and Joplin. The truck and the Loadmaster Legacy bed has a total cost of $162,362. Questions?
Make a motion that we approve the bid of TLG of Joplin, Missouri for $162,362 for a new refuse truck for the refuse department.
Second.
I think the only question I had was, how's the availability look?
10 days.
10 days, okay, so.
That's the reason why we went this route.
Yeah.
The bid here, I was looking at that before I came in here because I wanted to know myself, and then I figured that would be a question. It says delivering approximately 10 business days after receipt of PO. So.
All right, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Looks like you could buy a truck.
Crash proof.
Yeah, well, we hope.
A big deer catcher out
We
there.
need, yeah, we need a brush guard on the thing, on the front of that. Next item is, this is another inventory item, primary underground cable for inventory. As you can see there, I do have 5 bidders. This is for 12,500 feet approximately, or 5 reels. With a total cost from Gray Bar of $31,640.63.
Make a motion that we approve the bid of Gray Bar of Jefferson City, Missouri for $31,640.63 for primary underground cable for inventory.
One thing I do want to mention is you'll see there, this says all quotes subject to escalation, de-escalation. So probably won't be cheaper, could be higher by the time we get the wire. So
And what will the cable be used for? I haven't.
this is primary underground. This would be a primary line that we bury underground for whatever, for part of the solar farm, but we are low in inventory.
Electric cable. Electric cable.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry, primary underground cable, yes.
Shocking how different. the
Part of-
bids are, isn't it?
Yeah.
Part of it will go back to inventory. We are low in inventory as well.
I would say this probably be adjusted up from here. Prices are shooting up. All those in favor?
We do have a motion, but we're lacking a
Oh,
second.
Oh, and we have a second.
Good job.
All right. Put your name in the book. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the last item I have is sidewalk repair and replacement throughout the city. This does say throughout the city, but a lot of the work will take place over around the park, Webster, West Main, over in that area. This is for some sidewalk repair and replacement. This is also for a little bit of storm drainage work as well. On the physical impact, says the budget amount for sidewalk improvements this year was $400,000. The project construction estimate was $250 to allow for room to adjust for accessibility requirements deemed necessary as the project is underway. I do have 3 bidders there. The low bid is Smith and Edwards from Mountain Grove. Base bid of $184,692.40 with an alternate bid of $33,090.10 for a total of $217,782.50.
Make a motion. Go on, John.
What was the alternate part?
Well, I thought you was going to probably ask that, and it is for some additional sidewalk. It is for some curb and gutter, the storm box I mentioned earlier, and some drainage pipe.
Okay, so we're including that alternate. Okay.
Right. We didn't know if we were going to include that, depending on what the prices were when they came in. We didn't know if that was something that we could do away with or whatever. But at this point, we are recommending including it as
Got
well.
them here. Let's do it.
Make a motion, we approve the bid of Smith and Edwards of Mountain Grove, Missouri for $217,782.50 for sidewalk repair and replacement throughout the city.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? All those in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All right. Sir.
Next item is our planning and zoning recommendations.
Mayor, council, it's good to be back up here. It's been several months since we've had the opportunity to bring some stuff before you, but we do have some items that we'd like to cover from the planning and zoning meeting. The first item that we have is a 27 lot subdivision that was submitted to planners by Sean Duggins and GRC Enterprise. This is an extension to Westway Hills subdivision off CC Highway. I believe you guys were provided with a copy of that plat. We had a great discussion. The preliminary plat was approved in 2005 by city council members. I gave them an opportunity to put in the infrastructure, get things ready. They let it set obviously for several years, but with the housing market the way it is, they're moving forward with creating some additional building lots. This is geared for single family residential. It is zoned R3. But they plan to build and sell as they go. They do not intend to sell lots off individually, so they will keep that as single family homes throughout the development. City staff has met on this project. We've looked at the infrastructure that has all been put in place. We've tested it. Councilman Johnny Merle brought up a great question during the planning commission meeting because we've had some concerns in years past over water pressure. So we've had city staff check the zones, volume versus what that pressure would look like. We also have Sean Berry that we reached out to with Toth and Associates that took a look at that 6-inch water main. And the anticipated water pressure should be about 45 PSI per house, which is well beyond the state minimum requirements.
At the worst condition?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any addition or additional phases they look to bring forward would obviously have to be assessed at that time. But everything else is in place to make that happen.
Thanks, Dennis.
For the 27 lots, you bet. So something that we have done in the past that, so all the infrastructure is in place with the exception of the roads and streets. The road bed is there. The developer will submit a bond to the city based on our estimates from the street department. And we will carry that bond during construction. So they're not in there tearing roads up, making road cuts throughout. And at a certain point, they will go ahead and put the curb and gutter in as well as the asphalt. for that development. So planners looked at it. It was a positive recommendation from the planners. So if there's any questions on that development, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
So Dustin, for clarification, will the road and curb and guttering be constructed in place before they sell any lots?
No, so we're going to allow them to, we're going to keep a bond on record. And then if that bond expires, we will refuse to issue building permits. We've done this in Millwood subdivision. It worked out very well. But once we get to a certain point, probably 50%, we're going to ask them to go in and go ahead and finish that out.
Explain how the bond works. as
So
far
if
as
they
the
fail
infrastructure
to go in and do it based on our request, we would cash that bond and we'll go in and have it installed.
So they'll be building it themselves as long as while they're making the houses.
Potentially, yeah. They may build 2 or 3 before they get started with the curb and gutter. I could see that very well going in sooner in some of the storm drainage before they do that. But we will review it annually as construction happens because some of those costs go up, and we'll work with Brian and the transportation department to make sure that it's going to be handled appropriately. But it will be a phased approach.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, John?
Sam, you comfortable with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just I got that gut feeling again.
Yeah,
You know,
no,
it's
it's worked
person
well in the
buy a house
past.
and the roads ain't gonna be built for 10 years. They're eating dust.
Yeah.
And that's the process and the reason for the bond, so that if something happens and we have a need to go in and get those roads repaired, we've got the funds to do that.
Okay.
Not from the city, but from the actual developer that failed to follow through on their commitment.
That includes curb and guttering and drainage
Absolutely.
and all that stuff. Protect the homeowner and the private, and that their private investment.
It
Okay.
is, yes.
Okay, good.
So before any permits are issued, we'll make sure all that stuff's in place.
Thanks, Dustin. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Sam.
The second item we have is a development plan for a new Taco Bell located at 1464 Gibson Avenue. This request was brought by Matt Murdoch. He works as an engineer for We Engineering. Planners took a look at this. This will be a complete demolition of the current bootlegger site, and a new Taco Bell will be constructed in its place. They're looking at a 90-day build. They plan to be open by the end of the year. City staff has taken a look at this. We've looked at the site plans, traffic concerns for the site and what it is. We feel like they've handled the traffic that's going to come through there the best they can to their ability. So we talked to the engineers too. We've been in conversation with them for a long time. Just so you know, we've made them well aware of any potential conceptual drawings that might bring Alaska Street through that area. So they've been well aware of that before entering into any agreements with the owner currently. And they're also aware of the potential 5-laning of Gibson that is conceptual for MoDOT STIP right now. Other than that, infrastructure is in place to handle the development. It's similar to what's there now. It's just going to be a different establishment. So, and that did receive a positive recommendation from the Planning Commission. Any other questions? I'm happy to answer that I can.
I'll make a motion that we approve the planning and zoning recommendations.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you, Dustin. Final item is the administrator's report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Don't have much for you this evening. Let me get to my notes. Tomorrow will be the last day for the operation of our splash pad. So we are closing it down in conjunction with the fall season, but it's been a pretty successful year over there. I'd like to thank the staff for dealing with some of the issues that have popped up throughout the summer in terms of bolting some of those elements back to the ground sufficiently again. But it's been a good operation this year. We're looking forward to getting that closed down. We'll remove the equipment. One of the things we are going to look at potentially for budget is to look at a recirculating water system for that site. So we're just starting those conversations, but we wanted to sort of get through the first year, figure out what the water usage was going to be before we decide whether we need to move forward with that project or not. Another project going on, you're familiar with the trails that were paved at Galloway Park. We have some benches and some picnic tables that are being installed this week. One note, some of the picnic tables that were delivered were damaged during shipment. So there's some slight damage to those. We're going to go ahead and put the equipment in that we have. The manufacturer has committed to replacing those tabletops, but we're going to go ahead and put those in for now. We do have some grant compliance issues that we do need to make sure that some of those elements are in place. So those features will be available so that we can document that for grant purposes, but those tabletops will be replaced as soon as they can come in. As Jeff mentioned, there's long lead times on lots of things right now, so we're not quite sure when we'll get those tabletops in, but we'll have some functioning tables until then. And then finally, as many of you are aware, Sherry Cromer has announced her retirement. It will be effective, her last date with the city will be October 8th. So she was not here this evening, but we'll probably plan to bring her back for the October meeting just to say thank you in one way, shape, or form. But did want to acknowledge her years of service here with the city. It's been very valuable. She served as our finance director a couple of times as we've been through some of those searches. Very knowledgeable of city affairs and processes. So we're going to miss her, but we do want to congratulate her upon her retirement. The position has been posted. We've started to get some applications in from external candidates as well. So I'll be looking through those and then at some point, be putting a hiring committee together of department directors to review those applications and get a replacement here sooner rather than later, because that's a pretty key position to fill. And so we want to try to get that filled as soon as we can. So that's really all I have for you this evening. Be happy to answer any questions on anything that's come up. Thank you.
No further business?
I got one question.
Okay.
What's the protocol when we receive the audit? Should we make a recommendation to accept it?
No, there's no real need to approve the audit. You've approved the bid for the audit to take place. That happens. So it's really just for your information purpose. Earlene and I have talked about bidding the audit service out. I don't know when the last time was that we've actually done that. As I mentioned this, but it is a good practice every few years to bid that service out. But even if you're going to have one audit firm do your audit for multiple years, most firms will usually bring in different auditors, so they have a different set of eyes looking at the books every year, because that sort of maintains that independence. It's what we hire them for, to be independent. And so even if you have the same company, it's a different process every year. They're going to look at different things. So,
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, no further